All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly wild investigation that exposes a massive, completely hidden supply chain. We're talking about a shadow network stretching all the way from the border straight onto the dining tables of the Capitol. We're going to follow the trail of a highly organized syndicate that's basically moving tons of unregulated product every single day.
But before we get into the hard evidence, I want you to stop and ask yourself something. That mutton or buffalo you had for lunch today, are you absolutely sure that's actually what it was? Because a recent police bust over in western Nepal has completely blown the lid off a syndicate that might just make you second-guess your next meal.
Part 1. What's on your plate?
Okay, to really wrap our heads around the scale of this thing, we gotta start on the ground. This is the exact moment the whole operation was dragged into the light. Inspector Nabin Prashchapagan and his team from the area police office Thanoli intercepted an auto rickshaw over in the Kajira area. Notice how the cargo was completely hidden inside those heavy black plastic bags? Yeah, this definitely wasn't your standard hygienic meat delivery. Inside was illegal cow meat, just being smuggled right in broad daylight.
Part 2. The Dark Smuggling Network.
Now, what makes the story so fascinating, and honestly pretty alarming, is that this bust was literally just the tip of the iceberg. This wasn't some local butcher cutting corners. No, this network operates like a well-oiled machine in 4 distinct steps. First off, because of super strict cattle laws in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, abandoned cattle end up crossing the open border right into Nepal's Bankai district. Second, to fly under the radar, smugglers slaughter and debone the animals out in rural villages. Third, the meat gets frozen and cleverly repackaged to look just like standard mutton or buffalo. And finally, it's quietly transported directly to Kathmandu.
Part 3. Fake certificates, real crimes.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth do literally tons of illegal, unregulated meat travel across an entire country without getting stopped at a single quarantine checkpoint? Well, the answer is all in the paperwork. Investigators strongly suspect smugglers are just using pre-signed, pre-stamped, blank veteran certificates. The meat, it's never physically inspected. Smugglers just fill in the blanks themselves and drive right on through. It basically turns a crucial health safeguard into nothing more than a rubber stamp.
And the sheer audacity of this hasn't gone unnoticed. Local business owners have pointed out a pretty glaring mathematical impossibility here. They're asking, if Bankai doesn't farm buffaloes, where is all this buffalo meat coming from? It's a really simple, undeniable fact, and it strongly points to massive amounts of fake labeling happening right out in the open.
Part 4. 50 tons, the Kathmandu connection.
Because, look, we aren't just talking about a couple of sketchy bags in an auto rickshaw anymore. We're talking about an absolute industrial-scale enterprise aimed straight at the capital city. Sources tied to the meat business estimate an absolutely mind-blowing number: 50 tons. That's 50 tons of meat being moved every single day from about a dozen active supply centers around the Nepalganj and Kohalpur areas. This is a massive logistical operation requiring serious coordination. To actually pull that off, to move 50 tons a day, the meat is frozen into these giant heavy blocks and just packed tightly onto transport trucks. And where does it go once it hits the capital? It blends seamlessly right into Kathmandu's market. It gets heavily processed into sausages, packaged meats, and served up in hotel dishes. So, for the everyday consumer, figuring out where it originally came from, almost impossible.
Part 5. Severe health and legal risks.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? Well, this totally unregulated black market is a very real, multi-layered crisis. On the health front, medical experts are issuing some pretty severe warnings. Consuming untested meat from these unregulated environments leads straight to food poisoning, nasty bacterial infections, parasitic diseases, and severe stomach issues. And to make matters worse, there are even serious local rumors going around that dog meat is occasionally being mixed into these frozen batches just to bump up the volume.
And looking at it from a legal standpoint, this network is breaking multiple federal laws. Because the cow is the national animal of Nepal, slaughtering them is a strictly punishable crime. But even beyond that specific law, operating these unapproved rural slaughterhouses and actively bypassing mandatory health tests, that's a direct violation of the nation's core health and food safety regulations.
Part 6. How to protect yourself. All right, given these massive regulatory failures, let's talk about what you should actually take away from this explainer to keep yourself and your family safe. Experts say you need to be on the lookout for a few specific red flags. First, be super suspicious of unnaturally cheap prices. If it's too good to be true, it probably is, right? Also watch out for unfamiliar or bad smells.
textures that seem overly frozen, which is usually done to hide the meat's actual age or origin, missing source info, and vendors who flat out refuse to give you a proper bill.
At the end of the day, you hold the power here. By actively taking just 3 simple steps, you can help cut off the demand for this illegal supply chain. Number 1, always demand a proper bill for your purchase. Number 2, commit to buying only from licensed, reputable shops or transparent meat marts. And number 3, don't be afraid to actually ask to see their veterinary certificates. You absolutely have the right to know exactly what you're paying for and what you're eating.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. As we've seen today, this system has massive vulnerabilities. Literally, from the border all the way to the local butcher shop. Until high-level, independent investigations can track every single truck and actually digitize the certificate process, we're left with a question that demands an answer. What is really making it to your plate? Until we get some real transparency, it pays to be a very, very careful consumer. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious.